Community Hotline is made possible with generous support by Gresham Ford, the dealer with a heart. The Contribute to the Community program provides the opportunity for the Gresham Ford team to make a positive impact, serving their customers and helping people across the community. The Outlook, serving the residents of East Multnomah County for more than 100 years. The region's #1 source for information, The Outlook provides readers with intensely local coverage of the issues and people that impact our lives and community. The Mountain Hood Cable Regulatory Commission, advocating on behalf of the public interest on communications policy issues at the local, state, and federal levels.
And by Stamp Connection and BeFit Gyms. A very special thanks to all the sponsors who help make our programming possible.
Hi, I'm Monica Weitzel, the host of Community Hotline. Every week we talk with local organizations working to make life better for all of us. Tonight's show begins with a nonprofit called All Hands Raised. They work to improve the success of our kids in and out of school with a focus on education, equity, and excellence. Then we'll talk to Zarephath Kitchen and Pantry. This volunteer-based ministry provides food for low-income families and the homeless in the Gresham, Oregon area. Two completely different organizations with the like-minded goal of improving lives in partnership with the community. This is good work you should know about. You'll hear all about it tonight on Community Hotline, coming up next. Hi, and welcome to Community Hotline. I'm Monica Weitzel, and you're at MetroEast Community Media in Gresham. Tonight we have a full show of two different organizations, very different from each other, but both doing really good things in the community. And our first guest is going to be Dan Ryan. He is the CEO of All Hands Raised. Thanks for being here, Dan.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thank you for having me, Monica.
Yeah, I'm so glad to have you on. So I was mentioning to you earlier that I'd heard about your organization from one of my coworkers a few years back, and he said, oh, they just do great work. It's really impressive. And I'm sorry it's taken me this long to find out more. So, you know, having seen you at a meeting where we were both interested in working with kids in the Gresham Barlow School District, it piqued my interest again. So maybe you could tell our viewers, if you would, to start out just a little bit about All Hands Raised, maybe the history of how it got started.
Thank you for having me here to represent this work that's, you know, shared by so many other organizations. Sure. All Hands Raised kind of knits everything together with our schools and our nonprofits, and that's kind of what was the rallying cry for this. Was we were looking at all the data, graduation rates were too low, and that brought people together. But there were also concerns about early childhood, and basically from birth to career, there were concerns. But we didn't have any systemic connectivity between all of the different organizations, if you will.
So a lot of different groups doing good things,
yeah,
but no through pathway for them all to work together.
Yeah, I think that's a good way. It's kind of like we use this phrase, we have a lot of programs, we're program rich, but we're system poor. So there isn't we call it, we're knitters, you know, how do you weave this together?
Right.
And so All Hands Raised was this aspiration to help figure that out. And then we also thought, instead of just focusing on Portland public schools, that we should really get beyond, especially with the rapid gentrification that was taking place in inner city. And so All Hands Raised used to be called Portland Schools Foundation. Oh. And then we, in 2011, went through a process of working with the entire county. And it's been a real pleasure to work with all 7 districts in the county. Wow, and that's been really important.
All of Multnomah County is your service area, so
it is. At this time, that's a service area, right.
Wow. Oh, well, that's plenty to keep you busy. I'm
Yeah,
sure.
yeah.
I'm sure.
But it really was that, is it early childhood? Is it
Yeah.
it the problem with teenagers and high school? And it's all of it. And so
Right.
if we really want to have a pipeline, really the long-term economic plan, then we need to just figure out how to put this all together.
So when you say long-term economic plan, you're talking about getting these kids where you can start out in kindergarten or preschool, whatever, but eventually they're going to be part of our job market. And
Absolutely. We have to
people
grow
that-
our own.
Yeah,
We
there
can't
you
keep
go.
importing all our talent.
Yeah,
And the fact
yeah.
is we have all these wonderful children and families here in this area that deserve to be a part of this prosperity.
Right.
And so we just had to start and look in the mirror and figure out how we could have better outcomes. So there actually are people from all our communities ready to fill these jobs and go into college, get their degrees. But we were noticing that we were always blaming the kindergarten teacher or we're blaming the middle school or we're blaming the high school.
Or blaming
Stop
the
it.
parents,
Or
or-
blaming
yeah.
the parents, of course.
Yeah.
And it's like there's no time for the blame. These are all of our kids,
Yeah.
and we have to figure out how to take responsibility and accountability for our children and for our economic mobility for those children and families.
That's a huge job. I mean, that's a big task to try to weave all that together. So how do you even begin to do that? You obviously have to partner with a lot of organizations and schools.
Yeah.
And so tell me first, what is the actual mission of your organization?
The mission really is focused on economic mobility for all of our children, especially focusing on racial equity. For too many years, decades, we failed many of our communities. And when you look, for example, at the Latino community, the fastest growing community in our region for some time, and when we have such a low graduation rate for such a community, those are our future. Those are our
Yeah.
future employees, our future employers.
Right.
And so when you think about economic prosperity and the connectivity to that with racial equity, it's one and the same. And
Yeah.
too often, I think we try to silo even that thought.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
There's a couple of pictures that you were able to bring, and so these are kids, obviously in a classroom. The focus is on the kids.
Yeah.
At least the outcomes are the kids,
Yeah.
right? But the work is not necessarily with the kids; it's with the adults.
It really is. I
Yeah.
mean, kids are resilient. Kids are ready to learn. They're just built that way, right?
Yeah.
Can't we remember back when?
These are so
But
great.
we need to give more attention to our adults that are part of the system, whether in the schools or with the county or with a nonprofit, and how can they all figure out how to work together?
Right.
So
right. To get these kids to where they need to be.
Yeah.
Because we can't blame the kids.
No.
for how.
Well, you can, but it doesn't do much
yeah,
good.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, there comes a point when a kid has to be responsible and take accountability
Yeah.
for what they do, but really it's up to the community and the schools and everybody else involved to help them get on the right path. And
Right.
and the right path isn't necessarily a 4-year degree like it used to be, right? I mean that.
Well, I think you're making a good
That's a great
point.
thing for a lot of people, but it doesn't necessarily have to be the end all.
It's post-secondary is a language we use, so it's what is the plan? So instead of being excited that our graduation rates have gone up rapidly in the last 10 years, which is great, it's really is improving. And the FAFSA, which is the federal forms for aid,
right.
we've gone up 14 points just in the last 4 years. So that's really good data
right.
too. But the fact is, those children and youth, when they're at that age, they need choices. And I think what happened is we eroded a lot of our shops. Remember back in the day we
Right.
had wood shop
You
and
took shop.
right,
It was
shop.
what it was called, shop, yeah.
And
It
so
was
we had those.
woodworking, it was metalworking, whatever.
We had the hands-on
Yeah.
curriculum in the schools. A
Mostly
lot of that
for the
was
boys, I might add.
What's that?
Mostly for the boys, I might add. Back in the day.
Back in the day,
I mean,
yeah,
there
I
were-
know.
you know.
But there was Bachelor Survival for the boys. Did you remember that? We're
Don't
dating
remember
ourselves,
that.
sorry.
I had home ec. We had home ec, but Bachelor Survival, huh?
But it's that hands-on learning that
Yeah,
all
yeah.
youth enjoy.
Yes.
And so what we found is that we just had too many of our teachers and the adults in the buildings, they didn't have any access in their life experience to those jobs in manufacturing and construction. It wasn't in their radar screen. So often their lens was focused only on helping the children, the youth, get to college. And so it was
So it's
kind of
almost like those classes were like extracurricular classes or not really something
Yeah.
that was going to become part of your future.
Or they were just cut. Sometimes it was just that there was dramatic cuts. But I think it also started, because of the cuts, we didn't have in the buildings people with that aptitude and that knowledge. And we found that what was really important is to change the attitudes and beliefs and values of the adults in the building to know about these choices. So we have this thing called Industry for a Day, which is actually coming up this May, where over 200 educators in Multnomah County put on a hard hat and go on tours of manufacturing and construction sites.
Oh, really? So the educators go.
The educators.
So I heard about the Industry for a Day. I assumed it was industry people coming to the kids, but it's not that.
No, it's about the adults in the buildings, and then we pay for substitutes that day so that they can go out and become familiar with these exciting opportunities. Because for many children, for many youth, it's much better to perhaps go right into an apprenticeship program than going on to college. Doesn't mean that after they work out in the field, that they work in construction for maybe a decade, they might go on and become an engineer. It's not a linear process, this thing called life. And so I think we were doing college, maybe military, or good luck. And we really needed to make sure we had this vast opportunity. And there's this, they call it the grain tsunami of the people in these careers. They're retiring. And so we actually have this incredible job shortage. And so it's actually become an urgent crisis need.
There's a lot of industry that is really hurting for people.
And we're seeing great gains with that right now, with especially out here in Gresham, Barlow, and other districts, really taking this seriously. And it's exciting, and aligning the curriculum with Mount Hood Community College so that when they go to Mount Hood Community College, they're already wired, if you will, to take the courses that will allow them to get their apprenticeship. And really lower that age, so the average apprenticeship lowers down to between 18 and 22 as opposed to the late 20s.
It makes sense. It makes sense. People get on with your lives. Here you go. Well, and the thing is that, years ago, it used to be that you got a job, you stayed there for pretty much your whole life till you retired, and then you were done. But people don't do that now, so it isn't, a linear path. You can start out here, and, you might be in construction, but then, like you said, eventually become, an engineer. Or maybe there's some other aspect of it that you really find appealing, and just taking those little detours is not a bad thing. It used to be considered that. It was like, why did you have so many jobs in your life? But it's
now it's just natural.
And
if we really focus on economic mobility for someone that's 18 to go right into an apprenticeship program to start earning while they're learning and avoid debt, that's a good thing.
That's a very good thing. It's a very good thing. So how do you decide who you're going to work with? How does that work?
There's a lot of willingness on the part of all the partners. I think all of us know that we could improve what we're doing. And so if we do it collectively, then it's a little easier.
So do you work with, say, Portland Public Schools as an entity, or individual schools reach out to you?
Really good question. On the strategy level, of course, we're working with the superintendents and the deputies, but really what we found is you got to go closer to where the kids are. So we have 22 school communities, and at those sites, for example, the kindergarten transition site, we call it, which is the handoff from pre-K to kindergarten. That's a big deal. In fact, let me just pause for a moment to say most of our work is very intuitive and common sense for any parent. You've raised children, right? So there's kindergarten transition. It's a big deal, right?
Yeah, it is.
And then 8th grade to 9th grade.
Yes.
And then the other one is the transition from high school to post-secondary. All of those
are
challenging for parents, even in the best of circumstances. So as a society, our systems for those handoffs aren't that great. And so we need to figure out how to all come together to help guide that. And so what we found is the handoffs there between the 8th grade, say, culture and the high school culture. There's this big divide even within the same districts. And so we do a summer program called 9th Grade Counts that allows them to pick up a 0.5 credit, become familiar with the high school.
So you probably lose a lot of kids in those transition times, right? They either lose their interest in school, or they lose their, self-confidence or whatever.
It's a change. It's scary for a kid. It's even challenging for parents. And the same thing we found with Head Starts, where a parent will feel comfortable in the culture of the Head Start, but then when their child goes to kindergarten in the public school, that same parent who might not have a college degree, or maybe they don't speak English, that's not their first language.
Right.
Sometimes that can be a real challenge when their child goes on to kindergarten.
Right.
So we wanted to make sure that handoff was more just gentle and civilized. So if we have Head Start programs, what information can we get from those Head Start teachers that can be then shared with the kindergarten teacher? It's a lot of common sense systems that you think would be in place, and it's not. I'm not trying to criticize the teachers at all. They're overworked.
They are overworked.
It's how can this
and
independent entity help with that,
Right.
those handoffs.
Well, I like what you said, civilized and what did you say, gentle and civilized?
Yeah.
Or what? Yeah. I mean, that's all around a good thing.
Yeah, there's no shame
if we had
here.
If we had more gentle and civilized, then I think that would be a good thing altogether.
And also how we bring in other sectors. So with each area, there's always people to include, organizations to include that aren't your usual suspects.
Such as?
So for the kindergarten transition, you have the Head Start teachers, and then you have the kindergarten teachers. Most of them have never met before, even if they're in the same neighborhood. So that right there is wonderful.
Yeah.
But then there's, say, a health clinic down the street. And so a principal at Davis Elementary in the Reynolds School District, not that far from here, there's a Kaiser clinic that's not far. And she would think in her mind, the people that work in that clinic, especially the nurses, they know more about my incoming kindergarten students than I ever would, or that our teachers ever would. So we have them now for the first time this year involved in the lab work, if you will, that we're doing at Davis Elementary with the kindergarten transition. So the teams are multi-sector, if you will. There's teachers from both Head Start and from Davis Elementary, the principal, but also now the Kaiser Permanente, they're involved as well. And together they look at the same data and they start to come up with interventions that are new and different and helpful to the kids and the families.
And you do involve nonprofits in there sometimes too, is
Absolutely,
that right?
good point. In almost all of our sites. So for example, I work at 3 middle schools, and what we found there is that there's usually a culturally specific organization. For example, at Reynolds Middle School, which is majority Latino, Latino Network is in the building.
Right.
So when we started doing work around disproportionate discipline and just discipline and referrals in general, we wanted to get to the bottom of this was actually at Centennial Middle School, which is also mostly Latino, and they're also in that school. My point is, if we didn't have Latino Network in those conversations, we wouldn't get to some root causes. For example, we look at the data. Can I give one story?
Sure. No, I would love a story.
Okay. So we were looking at the data, and we couldn't figure out why there was a spike in Latinas, the females, were missing school and getting written up for more discipline. It just spiked during this 2-month period.
At what age?
These were 7th graders, to be honest with you. Yeah.
Wow.
And so we were looking at the data, and the teacher knew who the girls were because it really was noticeable that there was this spike. And it was a group because it's middle school and people hang out with their friends. And so the mentor, who's Latina, said, "Oh, I didn't know about this. Tell me more." So then she got the information, and then she was able to have the relational dialogue and found out what the root cause of why they were missing school all of a sudden. And she was able to talk to them and bring them back into the fold, if you will.
Wow.
And so the teacher handed off to the Latina mentor, and together they worked as a team, and now they're back in their classes.
And get them back.
And they got something resolved. Yeah.
Wow.
But before that, they
Something
didn't
that
have
they
the
never
opportunity
would've-
to have those conversations.
Well, they probably would never have found out what the problem was, or they might not have.
You know what, you're right. They just could have gone missing, and then next thing you know, they drop out.
They're gone, yeah. And that's a sad thing.
It's a
when that
fragile
happens.
time.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's true. And all the times, I mean, there's all the times that are fragile, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like those transition times and just middle school altogether. But then we lose so many kids in high school too, so.
But like busy parents, it's like, you don't have time to really connect with one another and look at the data and kind of go on the balcony. So we facilitate that dialogue. We provide digestible data. Oh, look at that. This is a group of teachers and principals and partners from nonprofits that came together. It was at Mountain Hood Community College last August. And a week before they were scheduled to be back in their classrooms, they came and did these results-focused workshops with us.
Oh, that's great.
And what we did is we really looked at their data, their most current data, and we targeted populations that we wanted to have improvements with. And then when we meet with them monthly, we track the progress.
Oh, okay.
And it really helps when you really target a specific focused population.
Well, yeah, I'm sure it is, and then actually know what you want your outcomes to be,
Yeah.
and then work toward that. We're just about out of time, and I don't want to stop talking because there's so many more questions I have. But tell me what, as we look through these pictures, if there's something that stands out to you. I recognize Superintendent, is it Oakley?
Paul Coakley, yeah, he's a
Coakley,
superintendent Centennial District, right?
So if there's anything that stands out in these pictures, go ahead and mention it. But also, is there anything important that we should know about All Hands Raised that we haven't
I think
touched
what's
on?
important right there in that picture is that even though IRCO, Immigration Refugee Community Organization, and Centennial School District have a relationship, a contract relationship, they need to have a real relationship. And so the
personal relationship.
Yeah, and so that we can go beyond the contracts and investments from the taxpayers. Really what All Hands Raised does, it's good government. It looks at the assets that the taxpayers already provide to our children and youth, and then we help them actually expend them in a more efficient manner and get better results by looking at data, current data, testing interventions, and then when those practices work, let's multiply them.
That's great.
Practice eats policy for lunch every day. Mandates
Yes.
never land where we think they're going to, and most policies never really land.
You can think
so
about it all
we
you
have all the
want.
wisdom in the ground right here in Multnomah County, and we need to start listening to those teachers and counselors and social workers that work directly with the kids. Listen to them, engage them on the ground, and let the innovation bubble up from the ground up, like all good government should.
I love it. It just makes too much sense. Thank you, Dan, so much for being on to share with us about All Hands Raised. It's innovative, but it just makes complete sense. So,
You're so welcome.
If people are interested in finding out more, they can go to the website.
Absolutely, and we'd love for everybody to get a copy of our Chapter 4 publication, which tells the story.
Education, equity. Why don't you kind of turn that a little bit? Maybe I can
yeah.
get a shot of that. Education, equity, and excellence from cradle to
And it
career.
tells
And that was that same picture you
It
just
tells
had
the
up there.
story of this work, and we just break down the data for everybody, and we just, we're transparent about what's really happening.
Good, and
Yeah.
that's important. So conversation can start here. So that's good
Absolutely.
stuff. Yeah, thank you so much.
You're so welcome, Monica.
Thanks so much for watching this first segment of Community Hotline. Do check out All Hands Raised. I'm sure they probably could use volunteers occasionally too. I
Yes,
assume.
we
So-
always need new thinkers.
Good.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah.
So do check them out. And don't go away. We have more of Community Hotline coming up next.
Community Hotline is made possible with generous support by Gresham Ford, the dealer with a heart. The Contribute to the Community program provides the opportunity for the Gresham Ford team to make a positive impact, serving their customers and helping people across the community. The Outlook, serving the residents of East Multnomah County for more than 100 years. The region's #1 source for information, The Outlook provides readers with intensely local coverage of the issues and people that impact our lives and community. The Mountain Hood Cable Regulatory Commission, advocating on behalf of the public interest on communications policy issues at the local, state, and federal levels.
And by Stamp Connection and BeFit Gyms. A very special thanks to all the sponsors who help make our programming possible.
MetroEast plays a vital role in strengthening community life by helping nonprofit organizations share their story. One major opportunity we offer is Community Hotline, our weekly talk show that highlights the stories of our community's nonprofit organizations.
We've had a lot of people call Ride Connection because they've seen us on Community Hotline.
We can reach people that I've never thought about reaching out to.
We can get that word out to a broad audience quickly.
The list of causes and nonprofits that we support is really incredible.
Do you know a nonprofit you'd like to see on Community Hotline? We'd love to have them on the show. Give us a call.
It is so important for me to have the right to be able to speak what I want to speak and talk about what I want to talk about.
If you start shutting this person up and shutting that person up and shutting this person up, that's not America.
Hi, I'm Greg Matthews, retired fire chief for the city of Gresham. I've been volunteering in the East County community for over 30 years, and I would encourage you to do the same. Want some ideas for how to get involved? Watch Community Hotline every Wednesday at 7 p.m., where you can learn about nonprofits working to make our world a better place. Tune in to Community Hotline every Wednesday at 7 p.m. See you then.
Community television is what participatory democracy is about.
Like my friend Laird Ross says, it's the last great American soapbox.
It gives me a voice.
I'm glad it's available.
It's incredibly important to protect a place where all users of locally based nonprofit media have a place to speak and share their stories.
I feel like everybody loves music, and for kids like us in Rockwood to have something like this, like the tools that you guys provide for us, I feel like it's really important because we can get our, our story out. We can tell about what we're going through in these streets and stuff.
Back to Community Hotline. My name is Monica Weitzel. We're here in Gresham at MetroEast Community Media. Thanks for joining us. We are going to now talk with Kathleen Thompson. You are the board member for Zarephath Kitchen and Pantry. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having us.
You bet. And Diane Eder, you're the chairperson of an event you have coming up. It's the Michael Allen Harrison fundraising concert, and you are a volunteer at
Yes, I am.
At Zarephath. So thank you both for being here.
Thank you.
So I know that this organization has been around for a little while, and you've been doing some really good things, as I always hear about it, but I've never had the pleasure of having you on Community Hotline. So could maybe, Kathy, maybe you could tell me a little bit about the history of the organization, like how it got started and what you do.
Sure. So Zarephath is a community outreach program, and we provide food for low-income families and the homeless. We know that it's really important for people to have food in order to be able to uplift their lives. They have to be well fed, and so that's one of our missions. Our mission is really very simple. It's just to feed the hungry.
Yeah.
And
simple, but very, very important.
Very important, very important. Yeah. And so we reach out. So we have a kitchen and a pantry, and we are 100% run by volunteers.
Wow. That's a feat in itself, because a volunteer-run organization is wonderful, but it comes with its own challenges, trying to, keep enough volunteers and keep it organized. So, but you do have a board, so you're right. So this is a 501c3 nonprofit.
It is, yeah. Zarephath was started about 33 years ago in 1985. And it was some very compassionate people from Trinity Lutheran Church who decided that they would have a meal at Christmas time. And it was for the hungry, and they had about 25 people at the meal. And it was very close-knit group. Dick Summers, Lois Fitzsimmons was the first cook. Joan Ritter and her husband Bob were on the team, and Jackie Gunderson, and they ended up having this meal, and then it really, the need was very evident. They came off with, in about a week, they had decided to have a meal every week.
Wow, they went from a once-a-year
holiday to every week. And it wasn't long before the other churches in the area joined in, St. Henry's Catholic, Redeemer Lutheran, St. Luke's Episcopal.
So how did they join in? Were they helping with the serving or providing funds for the meals? Or how did they participate?
They were volunteering. Collecting food and cooking, and they ended up doing 3 days a week. And then by the June of the following year, they were up to 5 days a week.
That's a quick acceleration there.
Yeah, the need was very great. Not long after that, East Hill added another day, so they ended up with 6 days a week. And so it was a very needed event.
Right, I needed service in the community. And I bet they would never have guessed how many homeless and hungry people there are in this community now. I mean, it's grown since then, certainly.
Yes.
How many are you serving? Do you know how many people you're serving on a regular basis?
Probably on a daily basis up in the kitchen. They serve about 100 to 100 and up to 140 meals
a day.
So
that's a lot of cooking.
The need is great, yes.
Yeah, it's a lot of cooking.
Yeah, and downstairs in the pantry, they serve, we count kind of how many families we serve, and we serve between 30 and 35 families a day.
Wow.
And down there we're only open 4 days a week.
Okay, so the pantry came later, is that correct? Or did that happen at the same time?
The pantry came in 2001.
Okay.
So it was...
So quite a bit later, actually.
Yeah, actually quite a bit later.
Yeah.
From 1985 to 2001, we just had the kitchen. Then we had the pantry. Then we actually, in 2006, became an official nonprofit organization. And in 2015, we acquired ownership of the house that we serve from.
Oh, wow.
So that was a really great. And our community support is just amazing. We have so many businesses and philanthropic groups, churches that help out, that give us volunteers, that collect for us.
Collect food and
so forth. We have the Fred Meyers gave us a grant to upgrade our kitchen to a full-service commercial kitchen.
Good.
Joy Teriyaki comes and provides a full meal for the 100 or so people we serve a day. Once a month, they come in and do a full-service meal every month.
That's great.
Yeah,
it's good to know those kind of things because you want to support those businesses that give back to their community. At least I do, and I think a lot of other people do too.
Right.
It's like, hey, Joy Teriyaki. Yeah, I think I'll go there because look what they do for others.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And Riegelman's has provided assistance to us to get new freezers.
Appliances and stuff,
Right. Yeah. And we're able to buy food at a very low cost from Oregon Food Bank and from the Birch Community Services. So that helps a lot.
Good.
But we have many hundreds of volunteers who help keep the operations going on a day-to-day basis, and they are critical.
Well, you mentioned volunteers. I think you brought some pictures of some of the volunteers doing some work. So maybe we can bring those up and take a look at those. So how many volunteers do you think you have? You said hundreds?
Well, so we are kind of two separate
Okay,
entities.
and
The
here's
same
some
thing.
pictures here.
So in the kitchen, which
is right here, I
which is
assume.
right there, you can see it's not a very large kitchen because we are located in a house.
Right.
So
it's the size of the kitchen,
right.
I suppose, yeah.
But they've done a good job of reorganizing our kitchen, and we have cooks who I think are amazing because they come in and they kind of shop our freezers and decide what they're going to make that day.
So it's not set up ahead of time. They just
and they might come in the day before
Yeah.
or so and see, because we never really know what we'll have. So, but
because
they
you're getting it from Oregon Food Bank or something, or whoever.
And they plate up the meals, and people who are coming in for lunch just have a seat, and
So it's
people
not
take
like a buffet
drink
line.
order.
You're actually serving them.
Yes, very much
Which makes it
restaurant
more
style.
of a ministry feel to me, that you're actually serving the people. I think that's nice.
And then we have our faithful dishwashers who take care of that. And so upstairs, each day, to put this meal on and serve it and clean up after it, they have anywhere between like 10 and 14 volunteers.
Every day.
So multiply that times 6, and you know how many people we need. And there's a picture of our dining room. It's not very large. We have 4 tables that seat 8 each, and in 2 hours we're able to feed that 100 to 140 people.
I think it's kind of nice that it's in a house because it makes it feel like you're eating at home with your friends. Yeah, yeah.
So this is a picture of our pantry.
And this is downstairs?
And we are
Is it like
located in the basement. I volunteer in the pantry, so this is near and dear
This
to
is
my
your
heart.
area. Yeah.
But if you look at the picture carefully, you see a little slide behind the man there.
Oh,
There's like so we have to bring all the food down so that we can hand it out and take it back up. So
rather than going up and down stairs,
right, that's how we get it into the pantry.
It's like, what is it? They used to have those dumb waiters, whatever they had.
But we have a slide. And we're set up like a grocery store. So our clients who come in, when they go through a short interview process, and then they're given a personal shopper who takes them around, and depending on the size of the family, they select the food that they would like for their family.
That's great.
So yes.
So they're not taking home something that they would never use or eat.
Yes.
Yeah.
And we get fresh produce.
Religious reasons or just personal preference, or your kids would never eat that or whatever.
Right. So these are just some pictures of our shoppers shopping.
That's great.
And we get a lot of fresh pastries and breads from local groceries. Safeway is probably our biggest
Are some
supplier.
of the things that have been, I guess you'd call it gleaned, like a grocery store has, they ordered too much of this and they know they are not going to be able to sell it, so they can bring it and donate it to you and that kind of thing. Because I think that makes just so much sense to me.
Yeah.
Rather than throw stuff out, or restaurants that or bakeries who have more than what they need.
More than what they need.
Yeah.
And that's what we get. We get it from Safeway, and I'm trying to think of the other big.
Starbucks contributes. A lot of the local businesses will contribute.
And that's great. I mean, it's good stuff.
Right.
Yeah, we'd all like to eat, but if they have extra, there's no point in throwing it away and filling the landfill when you can feed somebody's family.
Yes.
And some of our volunteers are the drivers who go around and pick up the food. So they'll go to Oregon Food Bank or the Birch Society or around to the restaurants and pick up the food and bring them back.
Yeah. So there's a lot of opportunities to volunteer.
There are many volunteer opportunities. And without our volunteers, we wouldn't be in existence.
Yeah.
So
tell me about when a family, say, comes in, or can you tell me about any particular family that has come in that you've been able to help out?
So I have been a volunteer for a long time. So
you
after
probably have a lot of
time-
stories.
Yes. And after a while, you do get to know them. Most of our volunteers, volunteer on a certain day of the week. So either up in the kitchen or down in the pantry. And so I'm an interviewer downstairs, and so I get to speak with each of the people who comes through. And you do hear a lot of stories. I've been there now for almost 11 years, and so I've heard about people being displaced from homes when there were interest rate, when that whole housing market.
They lose their home that they owned, or
Right.
they,
And so for many of them. It was, the first time that they had to ask for help. And
it's hard, isn't it?
It's very hard.
It's humiliating for people, I
Yeah.
think. It's humbling when you have to ask for
Yeah.
help. It's really difficult.
And then we have people who come in, we have a lot of seniors that we serve, and they're on fixed incomes, and they tell stories about their rent going up, and we all know how rents have gone up in the last
Yes, we
few
do.
years.
Yes, we do.
So we get a lot of that, or people whose food stamps have been cut because they got a part-time job, and now, so
you think
it's
you're
just that
improving
whole,
life because you got a part-time job and
Right.
you've lost something.
Yeah. So a lot of, the need is great, in our community, and we really focus on serving our community. We serve from 182nd East, so we
Okay.
serve East County, and the need is just very great.
It's rewarding, though, isn't it, to
It
do that
is.
kind of volunteer work?
Yeah.
It is.
When you see, a family leaving after having a meal that they're not hungry, or having kids that don't get enough food to eat, and you're sending them home with food in the
Yes.
pantry, and knowing that they can go to school in the morning and have a full belly, which
Yeah.
is really tough if you don't. So
Yes.
those are hard things. Now, your volunteer run. What about funding? Do you have like fundraisers and things like that to help support your work?
We do, and we encourage people if they want to have a food drive.
That's
we
a great
appreciate
idea.
that.
Like a business could do it, or an organization.
Right. And we've had schools who have done
And
that for us.
Sure.
So it's
Well,
very
and
nice.
those high schools, they have to do those community service projects.
Right.
So that's a good one. Yeah.
Yes. And we've had a number of different fundraisers throughout the year, but the one that we'd really like to talk about is our upcoming fundraiser, which is a concert with Michael Allen Harrison.
Very, very well known.
Yes.
Very well regarded.
Yes.
Talented
So
man.
yes,
Yeah.
he's a local pianist, composer, wonderful performer.
Yeah.
Have you ever seen him?
I have seen him. Actually, the first time I saw him, he was actually doing work with the kids at the school where my kids went, and he was helping them compose songs, and it was really
wow.
cool. It was really amazing. And he had I've been to I've heard him several times.
Yes.
And he has his own areas. There's your
there's
poster.
our posters.
But yeah, and he had his own nonprofit, the Snowman Foundation, where
Yes.
they were doing
Right,
the pianos, and I've
Yes.
had him on here. But yeah, a lot of really great community work, and so he's going to be performing.
He is for us on May 4th, which is a Saturday, at Mountain View Community Church here in Gresham. And it's actually our second annual. We were pleased to have him last year. When we reached out to him, he agreed to do it. And last year at the end of the concert, I have a friend who, he just stayed around and was visiting. He's so personable.
Yeah.
And she just kind of said, maybe you should do this annually. And he said, maybe we should.
Oh my goodness,
so
really?
we are very fortunate to have him back again.
Yeah. And so how did the event go last year? Was it a success?
Oh, it was a huge success.
Was it? Okay.
Yes.
Then maybe you should do it every year.
So yes, because he generously donates his time, and then Mountain View donated the venue, and we got Fred Meyer's. They donated some water and cookies. So we were very fortunate. It was
that's great.
For almost every dollar that people paid for a ticket went directly to Zarephath. So not only did they get a great concert,
but they
were able to support a much needed program in the community.
They're supporting people that are right in your own community,
Right.
and that makes people feel good when they know, because it could be the people next door to you. You don't know necessarily what people's stories are. Or they could be the people around the corner, or your kid's best friend at school. So
the need is great.
Yeah, it sure is. So what's the most rewarding part to you about being involved in this? What about you?
I really, really enjoy being of service to the community, and I think it's been a really great experience. I've only been on the board for 2.5 years, so not as long as Diane
Not
has
11
been
years.
with the organization, but I've been very, very impressed with all of our volunteers and just the tremendous community support that we get. from all different walks of life, and it's just it's been very, very satisfying to be a part of that and just
Good.
to be able to contribute to it.
Right, right. I can't say enough about volunteering. I mean, to me, that's something that everybody should do to whatever extent they can, but also raise your kids to do it too. I mean, I think that's really important. Do you ever have volunteers come in and bring like younger, I know, not really young kids, but maybe high school kids?
And actually, some of our volunteers have brought either their children alongside on school holidays or grandchildren who come and help. We've had young volunteers from schools who need to do some community service for some class they're taking, and we're happy to have those people come in and see what it's like.
It teaches them something too. It teaches them compassion and understand that life doesn't revolve around you.
Right.
I think that's really important.
Yeah. And the Boy Scouts have been a huge support to us too. You know, they have their annual food drive, and so the local chapter of the Boy Scouts has been very, very supportive.
So you're one of the beneficiaries of that,
we are,
food. That's great.
And they do a great job. It's a huge event that they have every year.
What's your biggest need for volunteers? What is it that you need the most? Is it people serving, cooking, or is it just kind of really spread out?
Well, it's probably spread out. But we always have a need for volunteers, and people always want to know before they start to volunteer, just what kind of time commitment is it?
Right.
And like I might have mentioned earlier, most people select a day that they're able to help, and it's about a 4-hour commitment.
Once a week, 4 hours.
Right.
If you've got it, that's
Mm-hmm.
that's not so much.
Right. And really, you asked earlier, like, what the benefits are, and I just think I enjoy doing it myself, and then I work with a group of compassionate people. So I enjoy working with those
working
people.
with good people that you want to be friends with, right? I mean, it's the kind of people you want to hang out with.
Our clients are all so grateful and so thankful, and they always say thank you. And I just
that's
think
wonderful. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So
Well,
it makes it all worthwhile.
It's like they say there, but the grace of God go high. It could be any one of us at any time. So, I think one of the best things about volunteering, especially at something like that, is it reminds you to be grateful for what you have. Yeah, and I'm grateful that you came on the show today and that we're able to share with us what you're doing, because it's a really important work, and I've heard wonderful things about Zarephath, and I'm really happy to have you on to let our viewers know more about you and then to find out about the concert. So it's May 4th, is that right? Which is a Saturday from 4 to 7?
From 7 to 9.
To 9, okay. Michael Allen Harrison. And
it's a great date night if you
Yeah.
want to take your spouse or significant other.
And so you can go to eventbrite.com, search for the Michael Allen Harrison concert on May 4th, and buy your tickets online.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah. Anything else we should know about Zarephath Kitchen and Pantry?
I think I just want to make sure that we thank all of our volunteers because they are so valuable, so critical to our organization, since we are an all-volunteer organization. We don't have any paid staff. 100% of our contributions and the volunteer work goes towards our clients. And so our volunteers are so critical, and business supporters, we're so thankful to have them.
And if people want more information, they can get a hold of you and find out how they can help.
Yes.
Right.
That would be great.
Wonderful.
Great. Thank you so much for having us.
You're welcome. I'm really happy to have you both on here. Thanks very much for watching this segment on Zarephath Kitchen and Pantry. And do check out the concert. Sounds like it's going to be a lot of fun, and you're going to be supporting a really great organization. I'm Monica Weitzel. Thanks for watching Community Hotline. See you next week.
Community Hotline is made possible with generous support by Gresham Ford, the dealer with a heart. The Contribute to the Community program provides the opportunity for the Gresham Ford team to make a positive impact, serving their customers and helping people across the community. The Outlook, serving the residents of East Multnomah County for more than 100 years. The region's #1 source for information, The Outlook provides readers with intensely local coverage of the issues and people that impact our lives and community. The Mountain Hood Cable Regulatory Commission, advocating on behalf of the public interest on communications policy issues at the local, state, and federal levels.
And by Stamp Connection and BeFit Gyms. A very special thanks to all the sponsors who help make our programming possible.